That morning, no one expected a single act of disrespect to change military history. What began as routine training became a moment every soldier on base would remember, and one that would test the difference between following orders and doing what's right. Fort Benning's K-9 training compound sat at the edge of the base, where red Georgia clay met chain-link fences and the air smelled of rain and diesel. It was a place built on discipline, trust, and the unspoken bond between handler and dog. A bond forged not in comfort, but in combat. Staff Sergeant Maya Reeves had returned stateside 6 months earlier, reassigned from Afghanistan to train the next generation of military working dog handlers. She carried herself with the quiet authority of someone who had seen too much and said too little. Her uniform was immaculate. Her salute was crisp, her eyes were distant. At her side, always, was Titan, a Belgian Malinois with a scarred muzzle, a missing piece of his left ear, and a limp that became visible only after long days. His coat was patched with old wounds, tissue that had healed rough and uneven, but his eyes were sharp, his posture alert, and when he moved, it was with the precision of a weapon that had been tested and proven. The new recruits arrived on a Monday. 18 soldiers fresh from basic, eager and uncertain, lined up in formation as Reeves stood before them with Titan at her heel. She did not smile. She did not welcome them. She simply waited for them to be silent. "This is not obedience school," she began, her voice flat and measured. "This is not about teaching dogs tricks. This is about survival, trust, and understanding that the animal beside you might be the only reason you come home." The recruits nodded. Most of them looked at Titan with respect. A few looked at him with awe. One looked at him with something else. Chapter 1. The Mocking Gesture. Private First Class. Darcy Hollis stood third from the left in the second row. She was 22, sharp-featured, with confidence that bordered on arrogance. She had scored high in marksmanship and physical training, and she carried herself like someone who expected to excel at everything. When Reeves introduced Titan, Hollis's eyes lingered on the scars. She leaned slightly toward the recruit beside her and whispered something. The other recruit stiffened, shook his head, but Hollis smirked. Reeves saw it. She said nothing. The training began with basics, commands, leash discipline, reading body language. Titan demonstrated flawlessly. When Reeves gave the signal, he dropped, stayed, moved, and stopped with mechanical precision. The recruits watched in silence. During the break, Hollis approached Reeves near the water station. Titan sat beside his handler, panting lightly, his tongue lolling out. Hollis glanced down at the dog, then back at Reeves. "Ma'am, is that dog still operational?" Hollis asked, her tone just respectful enough to avoid insubordination, but laced with something else. Reeves turned slowly. "Explain your question, Private." Hollis gestured loosely toward Titan. "I mean, he looks like he's been through a lot. The scars, the limp. Is he still effective, or is this more of a demonstration role?" The other recruits had gone quiet. A few shifted uncomfortably. Reeves held Hollis's gaze. "Titan has more combat deployments than anyone in this compound, including me. He has detected IEDs that saved dozens of lives. He has tracked insurgents through terrain you couldn't survive in for an hour. And yes, Private, he is still operational." Hollis nodded, but the smirk didn't fully leave her face. "Understood, ma'am. Just seemed like maybe he'd earned retirement." Reeves didn't respond immediately. She crouched down, ran her hand along Titan's scarred flank and stood. "Retirement isn't something you earn in this line of work, Private. It's something you survive long enough to see." Hollis's smirk faded slightly, but she said nothing more. That night, Reeves sat alone in her quarters, with Titan curled at her feet. She replayed the moment in her mind, the way Hollis had looked at him, the casual dismissal in her voice. It wasn't the first time someone had underestimated Titan, but it was the first time since coming home that it had made her hands shake. She reached down and touched the scar along Titan's jaw, the one that ran from his ear to his muzzle. She remembered the day he got it. The explosion, the screaming, the way he had kept moving even as blood soaked his fur. "They don't know," she whispered. "They don't know what you did." Titan lifted his head, his dark eyes meeting hers. He didn't need to understand the words. He understood her. Chapter 2. The first test. The next morning began with a field exercise. The recruits were divided into pairs, each assigned a training dog and tasked with navigating a simulated patrol route through the woods behind the compound. The goal was simple: trust the dog, follow its lead, and identify hidden threats. Hollis was paired with a young German shepherd named Ranger, a dog still in early training. She handled the leash confidently, her posture relaxed, her commands clear. But there was something performative about it, as if she were playing the role of a handler rather than becoming one. Reeves observed from a distance, radio in hand, Titan at her side. She watched each pair move through the course, noting hesitations, missed signals, moments of confusion. Most recruits struggled. A few adapted quickly. Hollis moved through the course faster than anyone else. She didn't wait for Ranger's cues. She led him, pulling the leash when he slowed, correcting him when he veered off the path. Ranger followed, but his ears were back, his tail low. When Hollis reached the checkpoint, she reported in with a grin. "Route clear, ma'am. No threats detected." Reeves didn't respond immediately. She walked forward, Titan moving silently beside her, and stopped at a cluster of brush 20 meters behind Hollis's position. She knelt, brushed aside the leaves, and revealed a training explosive marker, a small red flag that Ranger should have detected. "Private Hollis," Reeves called. Hollis turned, her confidence faltering. "You missed it," Reeves said flatly. "Your dog alerted twice. You ignored him both times." Hollis opened her mouth to respond, then closed it. Ranger sat beside her, panting, his eyes on Reeves. "In a real scenario," Reeves continued, her voice steady, "you would be dead, your unit would be dead, and your dog would have tried to save you anyway." The other recruits had gathered now, watching in silence. Hollis's jaw tightened. "I was following the route, ma'am." Ranger was distracted. "Ranger was doing his job," Reeves said. "You weren't listening." There was a long pause. Then Hollis spoke again, her voice sharper. "With respect, ma'am, maybe if the dog had better training." "Enough." The word cut through the air like a blade. Reeves stood, her eyes locked on Hollis. "You will start the course again, and this time you will trust your dog." "Dismissed." Hollis saluted stiffly and turned back toward the trailhead, Ranger following reluctantly at her side. Reeves watched her go. Titan sat beside her, utterly still, his gaze fixed on the same direction. One of the other recruits, a young man named Chen, approached cautiously. "Ma'am, is Private Hollis going to be okay?" Reeves didn't look at him. "That depends on whether she learns to listen." Chapter 3. The Breaking Point. The third day of training brought a new challenge: confined space search and rescue. The recruits were led to a mock urban environment on the far side of the base. Concrete structures designed to simulate bombed-out buildings, narrow corridors, and rubble-filled rooms. The task was to send the dog ahead, read its behavior, and determine whether a space was clear or contained a hidden threat. It required patience, focus, and above all, trust. Hollis's turn came midday. She entered the structure with Ranger, her movements still confident but more controlled than before. Reeves stood outside with the other recruits, watching through a monitor linked to helmet cameras. Ranger moved ahead, sniffing carefully, his body tense. He paused at a doorway, then sat, the signal for detection. Hollis hesitated. She glanced at the door, then back at Ranger. "Clear!" she called over the radio. Reeves's voice came through immediately. "Private, your dog is signaling. Confirm his alert." "He's been sitting at every door, ma'am," Hollis replied. "I think he's just tired." "Confirm. His alert." Hollis sighed audibly, then moved forward and pushed the door open. A training charge detonated. A loud bang, a flash of light, and a cloud of harmless smoke. Ranger flinched, but held his position. Hollis stumbled back, coughing, her confidence shattered. Reeves's voice was ice. "Exit the structure, now!" When Hollis emerged, her face was pale, her hands shaking. The other recruit stepped back, giving her space. Reeves stood waiting, Titan at her side. "Private Hollis," Reeves said quietly, "you have now failed 2 exercises because you refused to trust your dog. Do you understand what that means?" Hollis nodded stiffly. "Yes, ma'am." "No," Reeves said, "you don't." She turned and walked toward the compound's main building, gesturing for Hollis to follow. The other recruits remained behind, murmuring to each other. Inside, Reeves led Hollis to a small conference room. On the wall were photographs, handlers and their dogs, deployment dates, commendations. One photo stood out. Reeves, younger, dustier, standing beside Titan in full combat gear. Behind them, a line of soldiers with hands raised in salute. Reeves pointed to the photo. "That was taken 3 years ago, Helmand Province, Afghanistan. We were on patrol with a platoon of 12. Titan detected an IED buried in a footpath. He alerted. I trusted him. We called in EOD, rerouted the platoon, and found 2 more devices along the alternate route. If I hadn't listened to him, all of us would have died that day." Hollis stared at the photo, her earlier arrogance completely gone. "Those scars you saw," Reeves continued, "he got them saving lives, mine included." Hollis's voice was barely a whisper. "I didn't know." "You didn't ask," Reeves said. "You assumed, and in this field, assumptions kill. Comment where you're watching from. I want to know how far stories of courage and integrity can reach." Chapter 4. The Story of Helmand. That evening, Reeves gathered the recruits in the briefing room. It was unusual. Training typically ended at 1700 hours. But tonight, she had something to show them. She dimmed the lights and pulled up a video on the projector. The footage was grainy, taken from a helmet camera during a patrol in Afghanistan. The landscape was barren, dust-colored, with jagged mountains in the distance and a narrow dirt road cutting through the valley. "This is the day Titan earned those scars," Reeves said. The video played in silence. The platoon moved in formation, weapons ready, eyes scanning. Titan walked ahead, his nose low, his tail straight. Then he stopped. His ears flicked forward. He sat. The camera zoomed in on Reeves kneeling beside him, her hand on his back. She spoke into the radio. The platoon halted. An EOD team was called in. Minutes passed. Then the camera showed the technician carefully uncovering a pressure plate IED buried just inches below the surface. The recruits leaned forward, their faces tense. The video continued. The platoon rerouted. Titan moved ahead again. He alerted twice more. Both times, explosives were found. Then the ambush began. Gunfire erupted from the hillside. The camera shook violently. Voices shouted commands. Titan bolted toward the source of the fire, barking, his body low to the ground. He reached an insurgent hiding in a shallow trench and lunged. The man fell. A soldier rushed forward and secured him, but then another explosion. The camera went dark for a moment. When it returned, it showed Titan on the ground, bleeding from his face and shoulder. Reeves was dragging him back toward cover, her voice hoarse, calling for a medic. The video ended. The room was silent. Reeves turned the lights back on. Her face was calm, but her hands were steady only because she willed them to be. Titan didn't just detect threats that day, she said. He neutralized one. He bought us time, and he kept moving even after he was hurt. That's what a military working dog does. That's what you need to understand. Hollis sat in the back row, her head down. Reeves looked directly at her. "Private Hollis, do you have something to say?" Hollis stood slowly. Her voice was unsteady. "Ma'am, I'm sorry. I didn't understand. You thought he was just a dog." Reeves finished. "You thought the scars made him weak." Hollis nodded, her eyes wet. "They don't," Reeves said. "They make him a survivor. And if you ever want to be a handler, you need to learn the difference." Chapter 5. Redemption begins. The following morning, Hollis requested a meeting with Reeves. It was 0600 hours before the day's training began. Reeves found her standing outside the K9 compound, her uniform pressed, her posture rigid. "Ma'am," Hollis said, "I'd like to request additional training time. With your permission, I'd like to work with Titan." Reeves studied her. "Why?" "Because I need to understand what I missed," Hollis said. "I need to see what he sees. I need to learn to trust the way you do." Reeves considered this. Then she nodded. 30 hours, every day, before the others arrive. You'll work with both Titan and Ranger. If you can't keep up, you're out. Understood?" "Yes, ma'am." "And private?" "Yes, ma'am." "This isn't about redemption. This is about becoming a handler. Don't waste my time or theirs." "I won't, ma'am." The next morning, Hollis arrived at 5:20 hours. Reeves was already there. Titan sitting calmly beside her. Ranger was in his kennel watching. "We'll start with reading body language," Reeves said. "Sit." Hollis sat on the ground across from Titan. He watched her with dark, unblinking eyes. "Don't speak," Reeves instructed. "Just watch. Learn his signals, when he's alert, when he's relaxed, when he's detecting." For 30 minutes, Hollis sat in silence. Titan shifted occasionally, his ears moving, his gaze following sounds Hollis couldn't hear. She began to notice the small things, the way his tail stiffened when a vehicle passed, the way his nostrils flared when the wind changed direction, the way his eyes softened when Reeves touched his head. "What did you see?" Reeves asked. "He's always working," Hollis said, "even when he's still." "Good. That's the first lesson." Over the following days, Hollis worked with both dogs. She learned to read their alerts, to trust their hesitations, to follow rather than lead. She learned that a dog's instincts were honed by years of training and experience, and that dismissing them was not just arrogant, it was dangerous. Titan never warmed to her, but he tolerated her presence, and that, Reeves explained, was enough. Chapter 6. The Public Reckoning. 2 weeks into training, the base commander announced a demonstration exercise. Families, media, and visiting officers would attend. It was an opportunity to showcase the K9 program and the skill of the new recruits. Reeves was assigned to lead the demonstration with Titan. Hollis, along with 3 other recruits, would participate in a live detection exercise. The morning of the event, the field was crowded. Bleachers had been set up, cameras were positioned, officers in dress uniform stood along the perimeter. Reeves stood at attention with Titan beside her, his posture perfect despite the noise and movement. The base commander gave a speech about the valor of military working dogs, the bond between handler and animal, and the legacy of service. Then the demonstration began. The recruits moved through a simulated patrol route with their dogs. Hollis worked with Ranger, her movements careful, her focus absolute. When Ranger alerted to a hidden marker, she stopped immediately, called it in, and waited for confirmation. The crowd murmured approval. Then it was Titan's turn. Reeves led him through a more complex course. Multiple hidden threats, narrow corridors, confined spaces. Titan moved like liquid, his body low, his nose sweeping the ground. He alerted 4 times. Each time, a threat was confirmed. The crowd erupted in applause, but then a reporter called out from the press section. "Staff Sergeant Reeves, can you tell us about Titan's injuries? Has he been retired from active duty?" Reeves turned toward the voice. The cameras swiveled to focus on her. "Titan is not retired," she said clearly. "He is a decorated veteran of multiple deployments. His injuries were sustained in combat, and they have not diminished his ability to serve." "But given his age and condition," the reporter pressed, "isn't it dangerous to keep him in active training?" Reeves's jaw tightened. Titan sat beside her, utterly calm. "Titan has saved more lives than most soldiers ever will," Reeves said. "His scars are proof of his service, not a reason to discard him. And anyone who questions his value doesn't understand what it means to be a military working dog." The crowd fell silent. Then, slowly, one of the visiting officers began to clap, then another, then the families, the recruits, the base personnel. The applause built into a standing ovation. The reporter said nothing more. "If this story already has your respect, hit the like button. It helps the story of Titan and Staff Sergeant Reeves reach those who still believe in honor." Chapter 7. Institutional Reform. The demonstration made waves beyond Fort Benning. Video clips circulated online. News outlets picked up the story. Within days, Reeves received a message from the Department of Defense requesting a formal report on the lifespan and continued utility of veteran military working dogs. She sat in her office, staring at the request. Titan lay on the floor beside her desk, his breathing slow and steady. A knock came at the door. It was Hollis. "Ma'am, do you have a moment?" Reeves gestured for her to enter. Hollis stood at attention. "Ma'am, I heard about the DoD request. I'd like to help if I can. I know I'm just a recruit, but I think people need to hear what Titan did, what dogs like him do." Reeves studied her. "Why? Because I was one of those people who didn't understand," Hollis said, "and if my voice can help change that, then I want to use it." Reeves nodded slowly. "Sit down, Private." Over the next week, Reeves and Hollis worked together on the report. They documented Titan's service record, his deployments, his confirmed saves. They included testimonies from the soldiers he had served with, photographs from the field, and medical records showing his continued physical capability. But more than that, they included a proposal, a formal recognition program for veteran military working dogs, ensuring they received the care, respect, and continued purpose they had earned. The report was submitted, and 3 weeks later, Reeves received a response. The DoD was implementing a new policy. Veteran MWDs would be eligible for continued service in training roles, with full medical support and public recognition. Titan's case had been cited as the catalyst. Reeves read the letter twice. Then she looked down at Titan, who was watching her with those dark, patient eyes. "You did it again," she whispered. "You saved them again." Chapter 8. The Legacy Graduation Day arrived. The recruits stood in formation, their uniforms crisp, their dogs at their sides. Hollis stood among them, Ranger sitting perfectly still beside her. Reeves walked the line, inspecting each pair. When she reached Hollis, she stopped. "Private Hollis," she said, "you started this program believing you knew what it meant to be a handler. Where are you now?" Hollis met her gaze. "I'm still learning, ma'am, but I know I'm not the same soldier I was." "Good," Reeves said. "That means you're ready." The ceremony proceeded. Awards were given. Families cheered. And when the base commander called Reeves to the stage to speak, the crowd grew quiet. She stood at the podium with Titan beside her. She looked out at the recruits, the families, the officers. "Most of you know Titan's story now," she began. "You know what he did in Afghanistan. You know about his scars, but what you might not know is that every dog in this program carries a story like his. Every handler here will one day rely on that story to survive. She paused, her hand resting on Titan's head. This isn't just about training dogs. It's about building trust. It's about recognizing that the animals beside us are not tools. They are partners. They are soldiers, and they deserve the same respect we give each other. The crowd erupted in applause. After the ceremony, Hollis approached Reeves one last time. "Ma'am, I just wanted to say thank you for not giving up on me." Reeves looked at her. "I didn't give up on you, Private. Titan did that. I just made sure you were paying attention." Hollis smiled, then crouched down to Titan's level. She didn't touch him. She had learned that much. She simply looked at him, her expression full of respect. "Thank you," she said quietly. Titan's tail wagged once. It was the first time he had done that for her. Chapter 9. The Quiet Afterward. 6 months later, Reeves received a letter. It was from a soldier deployed in Syria, someone she didn't know. He wrote that he had seen the video from the demonstration, read the articles, and learned about Titan's story. His MWD had alerted to an IED the day before, and he had trusted it without hesitation. The platoon was safe because of that trust. "I wanted you to know," the letter concluded, "that Titan's legacy saved us. Thank you for teaching us to listen." Reeves read the letter aloud to Titan as they sat together in the evening quiet. He lay beside her, his breathing slow, his eyes half closed. "You're still saving them," she said, "even from here." Titan shifted slightly, his scarred muzzle resting on her leg. Outside, the base was winding down for the night. Radios crackled. Boots echoed on pavement. Somewhere a helicopter lifted off, its rotors cutting through the dusk, and in that small room, a soldier and her dog sat together, proof that some bonds are forged not in comfort, but in fire, and that the scars we carry are often the marks of the lives we've saved. Subscribe for more stories of loyalty, courage, and justice within the ranks. Thank you for watching the case of Titan and Staff Sergeant Reeves. See you in the next one.